Let's talk a little bit about Season 2. I think that it's clear to say that the vast majority of the community thinks that these changes are an overall net positive to the game, and I'm really excited for all that they're bringing to the base game. The seasonal theme seems okay enough, but really the base game needs a lot of work, and it seems like they're putting in an effort. Of course, the overworld is relevant again. We've got 5 new bosses. Item rebalancing, especially with the uniques, is nice to see. New uniques with new powers. Vulnerable crit is no longer the defined meta of the game, and I really like what they're doing with the Paragon tree by allowing us to make certain affixes that were previously useless additive damage become multiplicative to some extent. This just makes itemization a lot more interesting in the game because your overall knowledge of certain Paragon nodes on certain classes will allow you to evaluate gear and actually determine if it's valuable or not. Now, these are all great changes, but new patches in general can bring a lot of problems to games. Of course, new bugs get introduced, coding oversights tend to happen, and Blizzard has stayed pretty firm in their idea that they don't want to do a public test run for Diablo IV. At least as of right now, they're not doing any kind of testing with the players. All testing for these changes is done internally. Now, I can see the upside to this. Of course, the meta is not already figured out the moment that the season launches, kind of like it is in Diablo 3, when we can test everything on the PTR, figure it out, and then all the content creators make videos on basically optimal routes. And although it's nice to have that mystery, it really opens the door to some problems when your game is not thoroughly tested, especially when you're introducing a patch that I believe they said is 40-some pages. Now, of course, the patch that came out prior to Season 1 was also pretty large, but not nearly as extensive as the one that's coming out now for Season 2. Let's not forget what happened in Season 1. We had people bringing Eternal characters onto the seasonal realm and trading gear. We also had a full-blown gold dupe that completely ruined the economy. Now, a lot of gaming companies release patches that absolutely trash their game to some extent, and then generally come out with some kind of hot fixes later. Let's think about Blizzard with classic Wrath of the Lich King. On day 1, there's a bunch of players showing up to the Stormwind Harbor so that they can go over to the Borean Tundra to experience the Wrath of the Lich King content. Except the boat keeps taking them in a circle and does not drop them off in the area with all of the new content. But of course, they eventually figure it out. They actually make an NPC that you can talk to that will just transport you directly to the Borean Tundra. So players are going through the game, they're playing classic Wrath once again, right? Now you think they'd have this game figured out because it's a recreation of a game that they've already made before. And yet when people get to a certain daily quest, I believe it's called Slaves of the Serenite, the goal was to go into this cave and free a bunch of slaves, and then you get a reward. The only problem is that every single time you talk to one of the slaves and release them, 500 gold just mysteriously disappeared from your inventory. Could you even imagine how angry you would be? I mean, it's not just like go in and save one slave. Like, you're going in and talking to a bunch of them, and each time taxing you 500 gold. You're probably not even realizing it, because who's actually looking at their inventory while they're doing a daily quest? You go back, you get your reward, they hand you some gold, and you're probably down about 5,000 or so. I mean, good lord. But of course, that was the relaunching of a new game and not necessarily a patch. So let's talk about a few patches that absolutely devastated games. First off, we've got Returnal, patch 1.3.3. Corrupted people's save files, and a lot of people just permanently lost their characters. I couldn't even imagine if something like this came into Season 2 where you come across some kind of bug, you're level 90, right? You're just about to make it into that real end game, and something happens, your character gets corrupted, and it's just gone. And of course, this is a cross-platform game, and I remember Forza Horizon 4 had come out with a patch that completely made the game stop working on Xbox. If we just take a moment here to look at all of the bug fixes that were introduced with Season 2, this really goes to show how many problems there are in the game. I mean, we have a couple right here for accessibility, but then we get into the classes, and look at these massive list of problem after problem. There are so many of them for every single class. Now guys, I don't want to bore you to death. I'm going to keep this video pretty short, but I'd like to know what your opinions are down below in the comments. Do you think that Blizzard should ruin the mystery and the intrigue of new seasons by introducing a PTR so that we don't have to worry about these massive exploits, at least not to the extent that we do right now? Once again, these changes are great for the longevity of the game. I think that in the long term, things are going to go really well. But with this many changes all at once, no player-based testing, I think it's going to be an absolute mess. Perhaps I'll do a follow-up video in a few weeks once we kind of see how everything plays out with the season, but my guess is that there is going to be a lot to talk about. So once again, let me know down below in the comments what you think, and thank you so much for watching. Catch you on the next one.